Let's go! So Marcus Scott flipped to Missouri, but I do not think that's the biggest story from LSU football recruiting this past weekend. I think we are witnessing something really special here with a 4-star offensive lineman, a huge position of need. And I think it's time to come around to the idea that Emery Jones is not only a really good offensive line prospect for LSU, but by far the most important uncommitted prospect that they have left in the class. And we're going to go through quite a few things in today's video, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Marcus Scott at the end of the video. So this is from Julie Boudwin, one of the best recruiting reporters. We always, reference her work. She's absolutely fantastic. And, this is Emery Jones going through some drills here. And before we get to the one-on-one pass rushing drills, you could just tell in every snap and in every drill, Emery Jones is a technician with a basketball background. And one thing you want to look for from an offensive line prospect is not only their hands, but their feet. And, this was something that we said in our initial Emery Jones film study. The reason why I was so high on him, and I said in the past that this guy is way better than probably we give him credit for, is that he is an all-around athlete. Just when you look at his frame, you notice there's not a whole lot of sloppy weight. When you watch his tape, you see a well-put-together prospect. And, you could just see it in these drills. Look at how active he is with his hands. And it's just unreal how you could tell that is a human being dedicated to his craft. Now, what's interesting, before we get into these one-on-one drills, he blew it away, okay? I just want to warn you, what you're about to see is some of the most dominant offensive line one-on-one performances I've ever seen. And for weeks, we have talked about this very drill not being favorable to the offensive lineman, but for Emery Jones, he still dominated this. And the reason why it's not favorable, let's go ahead and play this rep, for offensive linemen is for a few reasons, okay? The first thing is that you are truly one-on-one, okay? So the defensive lineman knows the snap count. It's always going to be ready, set, go. And when they see this ball, fire off, it's obviously way easier to sack a quarterback who's not moving. That's obviously a big advantage. And, it's one-on-one. In a real game, you have guys that'll chip down. There's running backs in the backfield. You don't have to sack the quarterback, which, the quarterback is just a standstill person. And you see in the background here's Andre Carter. Here's Andre Anthony. I believe this is Chasen Hines. And Brad Davis is right here. I mean, just look at this rep. Just pure domination. And, dude, this dude is a machine. Look, he just sprints. See Shea Dixon back here. Lots of fancy cameras. Look, he sprints right back. Ready for that next rep. You gotta freaking love it. Gotta love it. Here he is again. Just pancaking this guy. And notice we did this with Lucas Taylor. When Lucas Taylor had someone down like this, he tried to bury him. Notice Emery Jones, right when he gets him on the ground, he doesn't do anything cheap. He just gets right back up, sprints back for the next rep. It's unbelievable. No taunting, no nothing. This is Tim Duncan fundamentals. Get up, get back for the next rep. Ed Orgeron obviously really fired up about this. Same thing again here. I don't know who this prospect is. And remember, we said this with Quincy Wiggins going up against Will Campbell. It's a lot harder to block a guy who's sweaty and doesn't have a shirt on. And just look at how active Emery Jones is with his hands. And even here, his get-off was a little high, and he actually doesn't have leverage here. But notice how quickly he resets and just mows this guy down. And then he tries to spin, reset, the feet, everything. It's just gross. And then once again, and look at this. He gave him a little tap here. Coach O liking what he's seeing. I don't blame him. That's unbelievable. Even his helmet pops off, and he's just shaking his head. Time. And we're going to give you a few more angles on this in just a second. Boom. Chases him down. Just a pure domination of an LSU commit. This is not some slouch defensive tackle. This is Tygee Hill. And just mowed him down. It's gross. Absolutely gross. And you saw some other LSU players, and obviously here's Brad Davis right here. And you saw some other LSU players tweet out how good Emery Jones is. So Tygee Hill tries to spin. He thinks he's free. Resets. Even knocks his helmet off. And even after the helmet being knocked off, still dominates until the whistle blows. Unfreaking believable. And here's another rep via Shea Dixon here. And okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this rep at full speed. And this wasn't part of Julie's footage. And this, even though the helmet popping off looks to be the most impressive rep, and it's still very impressive, this is utterly ridiculous. So what we're going to do is play this a few times on full speed. And I know it's a little blurry. It's off Twitter. It's from Shea Dixon, one of the best LSU recruiting reporters out there. And I want you to look and tell me what you think the most impressive thing about this rep is. Okay? What do you think is the most impressive thing? All right? Now, once again, this goes back to when I played high school football. I did not play college football, but I was a pass-rushing defensive tackle. And this was a drill that I knew that I had to dominate in order for me to get on the field. So I took this drill very seriously as a defensive tackle, and I was a pass-rushing 3-tech. And this was one of my favorite moves. It is so hard in this drill for an offensive lineman to block a 3-tech who goes inside because you don't have the benefit, of course, of the quarterback stepping up in the pocket. And it's so easy to get, an offensive guard to get off balance by giving a hard step here and just going inside. It's so hard to block. And you'll see here that Tygee Hill, gives a good hard step. Pretty decent pass set here by Emery Jones. But you notice Hill actually gets a good initial step. So right here, if we were to freeze frame this rep, you would think Emery Jones would be beaten here. But watch this. Look at this. All this smoke. A viewer brought this up, and referees called these black beads flying up smoke. He resets and slides. You only really ever see this from like a wide receiver dragging his feet in bounds. Look at how impressive this is. To reset your feet when initially it looked as if you were beat to the inside. And watch him, after sliding, reestablish his footwork, plant leg, all these different things, and establish a base. And then he's dominating another Division I defensive line prospect. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And Hill is nowhere close to this dummy. That's a ridiculous rep. Okay, once again, watch how his foot just slides. You see that? Unreal. I can't quit looking at this rep. Wow. 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 And you know it's a good rep when the OL coach is dapping you up after that. Once again, this is via Shea Dixon. And it's another angle of that popped up helmet. I want to know who this guy was. He was very vocal. I saw Emery Jones' high school coach, Gabe Fertitta, who took a job at Louisville, tweet out support for his former player. And the Emery Jones hype train has been moving for quite some time. And this just proved what we were talking about on this channel. And I've spent quite a few videos talking about Emery Jones. He's underrated. He is very underrated. Now, look, I've gotten a few messages saying, well, how come Emery Jones is rated lower than Will Campbell when Will Campbell got beat a few times in these drills? And, look, Emery Jones, Will Campbell, obviously Emery Jones projects more as an interior guy, even though, in the tape study that we did, he plays offensive tackle for Catholic. I think he could play any of the 5 positions. And I think Will Campbell, of course, is just a pure tackle. But he can also play the other positions if need be as well. There's a few things you got to keep in mind with Emery Jones here. The first is, while Tygee Hill is really good, he's far from a finished prospect. And in Will Campbell's defense, he was going up against Quincy Wiggins, who is, to me, a better prospect than Tygee Hill. And he was going up against David Hicks, who is a better defensive line prospect, even though he's class of 2023. So, yes, I understand Emery Jones going perfect in this drill in front of all these coaches really says something. But we also got to keep in mind that Will Campbell went to a different All-American camp this weekend and dominated, and flat out dominated. That's not just LSU reporters saying that, it's national reporters saying that. So, yes, it is true Emery Jones had a better showing in this one-on-one drill, and you get a really hyped-up Ed Orgeron in the background here, okay? Just wait for it. Look at that, hands in the air. Very physical drill, seeing that helmet just pop off like that. But understand that, there's more nuance to this. But what we can say is that, Emery Jones is very, very, very important. And I think it is fair to say that he is the top uncommitted prospect left in this cycle. I understand that Shaz Preston's out there, Kendrick Law's out there, and they're very important pieces, Quincy Wiggins. But when you factor in position of need, when you factor in the lack of Louisiana offensive linemen in past few classes, and this next 2023 cycle is loaded, once again, at a lot of different positions, not quite offensive line just yet in the state of Louisiana. When you factor all that in, Emery Jones is very important to the point where we have listed Emery Jones as our number 1 uncommitted prospect before, and we will do it again now. And I just think that gap is wide. And I understand that there are other offensive linemen LSU are going to be after. Kelvin Banks, Julian Armella, Cam Dewberry, who those 3 guys are Malik Agbo, who are all rated higher or around the same level as Emery Jones. And that's wonderful. That would be a fantastic pickup. But obviously, getting the Louisiana guy is huge. And there's a lot of different reasons as to why that's the case. So, Emery Jones just improved his stock. Good news there with Emery Jones. He's the real deal. Now, it is kind of strange that we've had all these positive recruiting vibes and the visits and everyone's super excited, but in the last 2 weeks, we've seen 2 LSU prospects that were committed flip to other SEC schools. Marcus Scott being the latest, and of course last week, Lucas Taylor flipping to Mississippi State. And it may seem weird, but that might have been intended by LSU for this to happen. Look, I can't comment on what exactly happened with either one of these 2 prospects, but at least whatever happened early, and these prospects were able to land at other SEC programs. Now, what I want to talk about right now, before we get into Marcus Scott, is understanding slot value. We've gone deep into this quite a few times. With the new rule that was just passed on January 3rd, schools such as LSU and just everyone is going to leave open more slots at the end of the recruiting class for potential transfers, because next summer, now that this rule is in place, you're going to see a lot of prospects jumping from school to school in the transfer portal. So right now, LSU is thinning out some of their prospects, and I think for LSU, that's actually a good thing, even though I think Lucas Taylor and Marcus Scott will both eventually be starters in the SEC. Remember, even though Marcus Scott is an unbelievable track athlete, he's got elite speed, and he's got a lot of measurables that could translate to the next level, LSU has two corners that right now are higher prospects in them, one of which is in the state of Louisiana and LaTerrence Welch, the other out of the state of Georgia in Jadarian Rom. And what's interesting is even though LSU has had two of these prospects flip, they're still nationally ranked number 2, SEC ranked number 1. And what we're seeing is you're going to see a lot more prospects flipping and leaving because obviously schools are getting their opportunity to have some in-person contact and competition and all this recruiting in front of them. And also recruits are getting their opportunities to go to other schools and test the waters and all that good stuff. So we also saw Georgia lose some good prospects recently as well. So this is just how it's going to be. Be ready for more prospects to commit and decommit and all of that. But none of this, if you follow recruiting, none of this should be that big of a shock to you because LSU, now that they have two corners they feel are pretty locked in, they're going to go and open up more slots for Denver Harris's and other elite cornerback prospects that may or may not come to LSU. So, it's just one of those things. I think for Marcus Scott and Lucas Taylor, I think it could be mutually beneficial for both of them. Now, we did do a deep film study on Lucas Taylor's film. I won't get too deep into Marcus Scott here. What I'll say is Marcus Scott on his tape looks like, just watching him, he looks like an SEC corner, but just on, a brief huddle study, he does play a lot of off-man coverage, which means you are 6, 7, 8 yards off the ball, which is what LSU does some of the time, but they're looking for press man corners, guys that are right up on the receiver, right at the snap of the football, and there would have been a learning curve there, and I just think LSU just thinks that they could find someone that could immediately help them compared to maybe down the road Marcus Scott being a year 2, year 3 guy. So on video today, lots of recruiting content recently because of all the visits. We will be doing more current team stuff, including some Derek Stingley content coming up. Obviously, some more content is floating in your face if you want to keep the PHL train moving. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! I think we're going out tonight for some chicken wings. Let's go!